Still a lot to digest from that scrimmage last Friday. And also, we got to pay homage to one of Saban's best and maybe one of Alabama's best.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama, AHSA Radio Network's Luke Robinson. That's me. Alabama internet legend Jimmy Stein. That's him. This episode is brought to you by TurboTax. Talk about TurboTax here in just a little bit. Thank you, everydayers, for being here every day. Thank you, newbies, for being here today. And thank you all for making this your first listen every single day. I got to move my microphone over here. I'm sorry. I don't know if that made
a bigger mistake than that. I think I did the whole last show without my microphone actually plugged in. I hope y'all heard me just fine. I just realized I don't think my microphone was plugged in. That much means I was just wearing the headset for decoration.
Well, it obviously got you because I've done the stuff, and but anyway, people are like, boy, that show sucked. It was just Luke and then 5 minutes of silence and then more Luke.
Jimmy was it was an homage. Jimmy's whole performance was an homage to Blake Dowd, graduating from the School of Mimes.
So let's go back. We want to pay homage to Julio Jones, no doubt about it, and we're going to do that because there's a lot that you can discuss when it comes to Julio.
I could get verklempt talking about it.
But
the first time I saw Julio, I'll save it for the Julio thing. The first time I saw Julio in person is a good story.
So let's talk more about the scrimmage, though, from last Friday. I mean, that's going to be talked about a lot. We've talked about the wide receivers. We've talked about in the previous podcast. We also talked about the quarterbacks in the previous podcast. One thing we didn't mention was apparently Austin Mack did not look great. I mean, again, I don't want to start off with a negative, but I just did it.
Per the report, and there's a report on BOL that I read in detail that indicated that of the quarterbacks, maybe Austin Mack didn't have as big a day. Again, I want to touch on the theme that we talked on in that last show, yesterday's show. It just sort of put an exclamation mark on what we've heard so far. Wouldn't everyone have guessed? Wasn't the conventional wisdom guess that Ty Simpson would be the starter, and if he's not, what he's got to watch out for is Keelon Russell? And that's sort of what the scrimmage apparently tended to indicate, right? Ty the starter, here comes Keelon. Wow throws, I think is the term that we heard, some that he really turned some heads, and again, this should be what we expect. Austin Mack, let's remember this about Austin Mack, because I'm an Austin Mack fan. Yes, he's entering year 3. But really, he's entering year 2 because he reclassified, which could start me on a whole rant about too many players reclassifying. And it's not the norm and shouldn't be the norm for good reasons. Now, I know Ryan was spectacular, but raise your hands, all the Ryan Williams out there. I think Austin Mack is still a very young quarterback. And here we are talking about Ty Simpson arriving year 4 and didn't reclassify, so it's a normal year 4 for him. This is Austin Mack year 3, but it's really sort of a year 2. So I think people need to be patient with Austin Mack and realize that Keelon Russell, again, there's a reason that every time I bring up Keelon Russell, I bring up Bryce and Tua, because we've had some real life examples at Alabama very recently of crazy next level talents. Again, as good as Keelon can do, what's he going to do? Win more than one Heisman? That would be nuts. I mean, Bryce won a Heisman. Tua made a game-winning play to win a national championship. What's Keelon going to do beyond what Bryce and Tua did at Alabama? So we've got the blueprint. We've seen how it looks. That's why I'm always going to compare Keelon. Now, his game is different than Bryce and Tua's. His game is different. I'm just saying his level of ability is in that Bryce Tua range. And with Austin Mack, I think it's just typical of quarterback development. It's going to take a minute, and that's okay.
Well, I also think that people love, it's sort of like filling out your bracket in the basketball thing. everybody loves to go, oh, I'm going to pick the 13 over the 4 because I just want to see it. And really, usually the 4 wins.
Usually
and
the
this,
4 wins.
You know, and in this case, Ty Simpson was the 4, you know, and Keelan Russell's a 13. He's probably better than a 13 seed. He's misseeded, but he's better than a 13. But and next year he's going to be even better. But I'm just saying, you know, even I've been caught up in the Keelan Russell hubbub and myself, and in the end, it's just usually go with what is supposed to happen, and that's Ty Simpson winning is supposed to happen.
And think of this. This is a great example too. The draft, and we're going to talk the heck out of the draft as soon as we get past A-Day. It's a great example about everybody expects this quarterback stuff to be so cookie cutter. Look at the story of Cam Ward. He's about to be the first pick in the draft. Out of high school, he's a no-star. He signed with an FCS program out of high school. Cam Ward, he was a no-star. Shedeur Sanders, he's probably going to be the second quarterback taken in the draft. He signed with Jackson State. Now, when you're going to say, well, you know, his dad was the coach there. Shedeur was not a 5-star. He wasn't even he's Deion's son and was not a highly recruited Power 4 quarterback, yet he still developed into very probably the number 2 quarterback in the draft. You know who was the number 1 quarterback in his class who's not going in the first round? Quinn Ewers. He was a 6-star, you know, and he's not going to go in the first round. Quarterback development is different in almost every case, but for some reason we all expect it to look the same or act the same or for players to develop at our pace or our expectations, and it's different for all of them.
So let's talk a little bit about the defensive backs because I heard about Cam Calhoun having a big day. Like this dude just gets mentioned every practice and every scrimmage. He's just this. You know what he is? He's a Utah cornerback. He's one of those guys that if you're playing Utah, you're like, good God, where did they get this dude? I've never heard of him, and he's awesome. And
Utah's never mentioned until the postseason rankings. Yeah,
I just
never
mentioned
mentioned
really good.
PFF just last week said Cam Calhoun is the 10th best returning cornerback in all of college football and did not have Damani Jackson or Xavier Brown on the list. But Cam Calhoun was up there. I read on the reports from the scrimmage that Damani Lee saw a lot of Damani Lee. Dijon Lee starting at corner in place of Damani Jackson. Yeah. Well, they'd have a talented kid. Damani Jackson, who's obviously out this spring, he would be number 1 at corner opposite Xavier Brown, I have no doubt, but he's out. And Dijon Lee, is out there starting with the 1. So now, again, just because you're starting in not even the final scrimmage of the spring, this means nothing for Florida State at all. But it is sort of a interesting anecdote, right? That Dijon will be out there. Every report I've heard about Dijon Lee has been A+. And we have every reason to expect at this point, like Keelon Russell, that Dijon Lee is going to live up to enormous expectations created by his high school ranking. And I'm with Luke on the Cam Calhoun thing. Cornerback 3 is a vital guy in this Kane Womack defense. It was last year. A few guys took turns being cornerback number 3, and they all became significant players. It was Deshaun Jones at one point, who's now really starting Husky. He was cornerback number 3. Who else cornerback number 3? Jalen Mbakwe kind of ended the year cornerback number 3, and he was on his way, and then he moved to offense. He chose to do that. But I think Cam Calhoun will be cornerback number 3 for Alabama. That's what I think is going to happen. And I think we're going to be very fortunate to have him. He's a talented kid.
And then there is Dijon Lee. There is Damani Jackson. I just heard that all the defensive backs look pretty strong, even though the wide receivers also look good. It was kind of a weird report in a way.
Yeah, taking turns making plays. Maybe I'm excited about both groups. I think wide receivers can be tremendously improved, and DB. What we talk about all the time on the show, Luke, is last year DB was a huge question mark going into the season, and I think they ended the year a strength of the team, and so many of those guys are back. If you start, let's say the Florida State game, if what the lineup is Damani Jackson and Xavier Brown at the corners, Deshaun Jones at Husky, and the safeties are Bray Hubbard and Keon Sabb, There's a lot to be excited about. And you haven't even mentioned Zay Mincy off the bench at safety, Cam Calhoun and Dijon Lee off the bench at corner. How about a Draker Patrick Jr., who I hear good things about all the time being around the ball? You know, maybe he's pushing Deshaun Jones at Husky. So a lot to be excited about. But the wide receiver group, particularly the front line, Ryan Jerm, Zay Horton, and maybe even a lot Sear Brooks, a lot to be excited about. Alabama's not going to lack for dudes this fall. I don't believe that.
Talking some TurboTax now. This is a message from our sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting and wondering and worrying some more. Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. Also, you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is Taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service, real-time updates only in iOS app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. All right, so this is potpourri. Give me some other scrimmage thoughts.
Here's a concern I had, and I haven't heard this. I don't know. I haven't heard this. I worried going into the scrimmage that when the game was over, we'd hear reports that there's a problem at place kicker because Connor Talty has sort of inherited that role, and then Alabama didn't go sign a kicker in the portal when the season was over, which is an indication to me that, hey, they like Talty. And by the way, I'd heard rumors that they like Talty, so I wasn't too surprised. But they didn't go get a kicker. But now the spring is his chance to prove, hey, I'm ready to be kicker one. So I think there's some understandable nerves if you heard reports after the scrimmage, but boy, that Talty stinks or Talty wasn't good or the kicking wasn't good. And we didn't hear any of that talk. So again, what does it mean? Nothing. But are there reasons to be encouraged? Yes. I think this is what my advice is to Alabama fans. As soon as the spring portal opens, I would look for Alabama's activity in the portal as it relates to kickers and punters. And if there's a lot of activity, that's telling us something. If there's no activity, that's telling us something too, which is good news. Because you're Alabama. Last year in the spring portal, they went and got the freaking Lou Groza Award winner. I mean, Alabama can get a name player at kicker or punter in the portal. But I just think the fact that we're not hearing much is probably good news. But day one of the portal, I'm going to look for Alabama's name associated with kickers and punters. And I'll tell you what I personally expect is I don't think Alabama's going to be associated with any transfer portal kickers. I think that they're going to ride with Connor Talty, which is a heck of an endorsement. Punter, we don't know. I mean, Alex Asparoff, the freshman punter, he's out for the spring and not out there. So that might be reason enough to say, hey, I think we're just going to go with the hand that we got at punter. But I'm not as sure about that. Kicker, probably Connor Talty for 2025. But that the portal season will tell us a lot. And that's starting up soon, Luke. I think, is it May 1 or is it even before then? I mean, that spring portal opens very soon. I'm not sure, but it's coming up.
I've lost interest in when this thing opens and closes, and I'm just assuming it's always open because it seems to not matter. And so I just don't know. Any linebacker thoughts? What about the Colorado transfer?
I haven't. Here's interesting about him. I haven't heard much great or bad there. Haven't heard much. And does that mean something negative? No. It doesn't mean anything negative at all. Just saying, I haven't really heard much. Just been kind of like probably learning a lot. I mean, that's going to be a radically different system coming from Colorado to Alabama. It's a lot. Now, Kalen DeBoer himself, when the scrimmage, at the conclusion of the scrimmage, Kalen DeBoer bragged about those freshman linebackers, Abdul Sanders, Duke Williams, and Luke Metz. They're all out there this spring. They're all getting a ton of work because Deontay Lawson's out. Justin Jefferson is out. So those freshman inside linebackers have gotten a ton of reps, more than they normally would. And DeBoer was bragging on them as a group. And we had heard intel after scrimmage number 1 that Abdul Sanders had a really nice day. So I think there's reason to be excited about those guys, but let's also be realistic about what's going to happen this fall. What's going to happen this fall is Deontay Lawson and Justin Jefferson coming back is clearly going to play a major role. I do think the Colorado transfer that Luke mentioned, Nakia Hill-Green, I do think he's going to be solidly in the mix with those other veterans because this is an all-conference player that came from Colorado. It'd be a nice situation to me, Luke, if you have 3. They kind of played with 3 last year, right? Deontay, Jihad, and Justin. This year, the 3 could be Deontay, Justin, and Nakia from Colorado.
All right. Anything in the trenches to mention? I know the offensive line, Olis Allen was in there as a starter.
Yeah, left.
I like it. I want a Viking on my offensive line.
Makes sense. Be it Minnesota or be it a natural Viking, real Viking, sort of the, but had Caden Proctor been healthy, he clearly would have been the left tackle. To me, the story of the offensive line is just simply the missing guy, which is Caden Proctor, and the fact that Jaden Roberts, he's got to be playing a little banged up. That kid went through multiple injuries last fall. I don't think we're going to get a real handle on what we have on the offensive line until fall camp. But the good news is all the reps these younger guys are getting, and guys that are getting reps at both guard and tackle. I mean, we're kind of creating a versatile football team because Olas has played nothing but guard until this year. Now he's a tackle. Vandermark plays center and guard. Michael Carroll, long thought to be guard Michael Carroll. He's getting reps at guard and tackle, which is interesting. Mal Waldrop came in. You're like, hey, you're going to be a center. Maybe he will be, but he's a tackle for now, per the reports, for now. So this is just creating tremendous versatility because about the offensive line, this is just the lesson about the offensive line. You find your 5 best players, then you figure out the positions. People, I think, get a little too locked into, oh, he's a guard. Oh, he's a tackle. I don't know. Chance Warmack was a guard at Alabama. Chance Warmack, y'all remember him? And he's too short to be a tackle. I guarantee you Chance Warmack would have been a better tackle than some guys Alabama's put out there over the decades. And I don't care that he's 6'1" or 6'2" or whatever he was. Chance Warmack was a great offensive lineman. And you just figure out your 5 best and you put your 5 best guys out there. You're not going to play a substandard tackle when you have a potential all-star guard on the bench.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. And I do love the fact, look, I'm okay with Caden Proctor not being available. I'm okay with it because, again, it's like Ryan Williams. I know what he can do. Of course, you want everybody to have the reps. At the same time, it's not worth the risk at this point. And we've got to find guys that this staff likes and that this staff trusts, not guys that they inherited and they have to do it for chemistry purposes.
This could be wrong, but I don't think Caden Proctor has ever participated in a spring practice in his college career.
That's right.
It's like he's figured out the NFL OTA system. This could be wrong, and someone correct me in the comments. Y'all often do, and thank you for that. But I think Caden Proctor was not an early entry guy, so he wasn't here for spring practice of his true freshman year. Last year, before his sophomore year, he had transferred to Iowa and did not participate in either Iowa or Alabama spring practice due to his transfer year. And this year he's hurt and out. So how about Caden Proctor? Perhaps if he goes pro after this upcoming fall, and I don't rule that out, he will have never participated in a spring practice.
He's found a dating loophole. All right, Monarch Money. Have you ever checked your bank account and wondered, hey, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just another budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Managing money with your partner is even smoother than ever before now. You can track and shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year with Monarch Money. I've been dreading this day when Julio Jones retires, because I just and look, I'll say this. Initially, I've been looking for the years to find somebody else that to find reasons that some other receiver was better than Julio Jones. Like Amari Cooper, probably a better route runner. Jalen Waddle faster. Devontae Smith, maybe I was going to say more clutch, but I don't even know if that's true. And in fact, I'm not sure if any of those things are true about any of them. If Jalen Waddle and Julio Jones lined up to race, the world would bet on Jalen Waddle, and I might put my money on Julio just because Julio's going to be as fast as he needs to be.
It's hard to imagine Julio not winning anything he's participating in. That's for sure. Yeah,
he started it all, Jimmy. I mean, look, we can talk about Mark Ingram was a big part of that. Dante Hightower, a big part of that. Marcel Darius, a big part of that. All these folks, big parts, huge parts. But Julio's the dude. Julio's the man that made it real. He made it real. He made it like, oh, we can eat. We've gotten superstar linebackers in the past. I mean, like a D'Amico Ryans, even though he wasn't super highly recruited. I mean, Bama's had some incredible linebackers. We've had some incredible running backs like Sean Alexander, before the Saban times. Even Kenneth Darby was great in his own right. I mean, but we hadn't had a receiver that just set the world on fire. I mean, David Palmer, but see, he played under Gene Stallings, whose philosophy in life was 3 things can happen when you pass the ball and 2 of them are bad. That was he said that. Like, can you imagine a coach saying that now and trying to recruit somebody?
That's so true. Although Stallings was saying mathematically it's true. It could be intercepted or it could be incomplete.
He's also way off.
Yeah, well, it's not a good recruiting pitch in 2025 for sure. I have so many things to say about Julio, but number one, these guys always amaze me. It's not just Julio, but Julio led a parade of 5 stars who are 3 and done first-round picks. Isn't that like how because I just talked about last show about that we expect too much of these guys. And then here's one that did it. And then we think they're all like that. They're not. Look it up how few they're actually. 5 stars who are 3 and done first round picks that live up to every ounce of the overhype. And that's Julio, living up to every ounce of the overhype. I was hardly a Forrest Davis for saying this back in 08. I remember telling Luke and my group of buddies back in 08 and old websites used to post on. I used to say this so sure because Julio's from my area. I'd seen him play a lot in high school. So I'd seen a ton of him. I would say emphatically, Julio Jones is going to be one of, if not the best player on the team the day he gets here. Because like most people, like, hey, don't put too much on the freshman. Guys like me say stuff like that all the time. And it's true. Don't expect too much of the freshman. And I'm like, yeah, I know that's what you say. I say things like that. And let me also say that Julio is going to be one of the best players on the team the day he gets here. And that proved 100% true. And a 3 and done first round pick. I mean, Alabama had a slew of them under Saban. It's not the norm. But Julio's not the norm. He's just an immensely gifted kid. And my funny Julio story, he's this big of a star, at least to me. Like I said, I'd seen Julio a lot in high school. The first time I saw Julio in person not playing football for Foley High School, I went to, this shows how long ago this was and how long Julio's career was if you go back to Foley. I went to see, my wife and I and 2 friends went to see Taylor Swift play at the Wharf in Orange Beach. Can you imagine that? I think people listening to the show right now are like, Taylor Swift's the biggest star. Well, she ain't played the Wharf. This is how long ago it was. It was one of Taylor's first ever headlining shows after her first album was out. And Taylor played to a sold out Wharf down at Gulf Shores. And we had really good seats. We're right up front. And we see Taylor Swift, who would eventually become the biggest star in the whole world. And we're leaving. And as soon as we get outside, I don't know that he was in the venue, but as soon as we're outside of the venue at the Wharf in Orange Beach, which is right next to Foley, for those that don't know the geography, it's just one or 2 towns south of Foley. As soon as we get outside the gates, me and my buddy, we see Julio. Julio's there. And I'm like, hey, that's Julio Jones. Should we go? They're like, should we go get an autograph? I'm like, I'm not asking for an autograph from a 11th grade football player, but holy crap, that's Julio Jones. And we get in the car and we drive back home, and the whole way, the girls, everybody are like, man, Julio, Taylor Swift show was so good. She sang Tim McGraw. She sang Teardrops on My Guitar. And I'm like, we saw Julio Jones. What are you talking about? We saw Julio. And he was in the 11th grade at that time. That's one of the things I always remember about Julio.
Taylor Swift's like, y'all ain't going to believe this. I played Orange Beach one time. Julio Jones was there.
Julio Jones was there. Heck, they were probably about the same age.
But yeah, that's true. The only thing, too, Julio was so, unassuming is maybe the wrong word because he is a freak of nature athletically. But he is he's not your typical wide receiver. He's not flashy and getting up and dancing every time he does something.
Never a diva.
Never a diva. He's like, yeah, I'm supposed to catch this touchdown. Yes, I'm supposed to run over you. Yes, I'm supposed to stiff arm you into oblivion. Yes, I'm supposed to catch this ball over 3 defenders. There were, when he announced his retirement the other day, there were national folks saying, y'all, I know everybody loves to talk about the catch for the Giants, and I forget Eli to what's his name, David, whatever his name was, Tyrell.
Yeah. David. That's Tyrell. Right. That's exactly right.
And they say people love to talk about that. Julio Jones's catch against the Patriots was probably better. The David Tyrell was kind of luck. It was kind of like, oh, and he catches it. Julio's was
he did it a loss.
Sticky hands, and then to get his toes down, and he did it while he was hurt. It was just he's just the man. And I hope, here's my hope. Here's the thing, because he's not a diva, I don't see his being in broadcasting. I don't see his doing any of that. I don't see his also, he might come back to Alabama and go to some games. He might, and he might go on the field one time and everybody go, Julio Jones, the crowd will go nuts, and he won't even smile. He'll just do like this. But that's him.
Yeah.
And part of me is like, I wish he was a little bit more flamboyant, because it's not lost on me, watching the Final Four and Charles Barkley's doing the coverage and all the cameras on him reacting to whatever's happening with Auburn. It'd be nice to see that with Julio Jones, right? They do that with Joe Namath to a degree, but Joe Namath is getting to be 106 years old. It's kind of like watching Jimmy Carter rolled in to vote at this point. You know what I mean? But I don't know. Julio Jones still is. He transcends generations.
He does, and I wouldn't say this about too many of the all-time greats, but I think Julio would make a good coach. I think he's got all the makeup of a great coach. And Deion Sanders ended up getting to coach. And it does happen that great players get into coaching. That does happen. It usually doesn't. But Julio, I do think, would be a fantastic coach. I never would have dreamed I would say that back in 2008 when he had a radically different personality. We watched him grow up. Obviously, I watched him in the high school at Taylor Swift show, and now he grew up to be really a leader of the locker room and a leader of men, and outspoken with the media, great with the media. And I think he would be a great coach. Although if I was Julio and I had Julio Jones money, the last thing I would want to do is spend the rest of my days coaching, because that's a 25-hour-a-day job at high school, college, or the NFL level. So I wouldn't do that if I had Julio's bank account, but I'm not Julio. Julio is an otherworldly person, and he can do whatever the heck he wants. And whatever he does, he's going to be successful. I'm just really happy for Julio for living up to the insane hype that idiots like me and you hype these kids. And it's so unfair for some of them. Julio lived up to every ounce of it and did it without scandal and being a first-class dude. And as far as I'm concerned, everyone's going to have their favorite or whatever. To me, he's the face of the Nick Saban era at Alabama. And I know there's other players with compelling cases for that, of course. But Julio to me is like the face of Nick Saban's 17 years at Alabama.
Plus the way he talked back to Saban in that little documentary that ESPN did after the first national championship when he was stretching it. And he was like, "You going to do something today, 8?" And Julio just pointed at him like, "Get away from me." Saban was like, "You got it." But, he's just he to me, he is what Alabama football is. We are not a super flamboyant. We aren't the University of Miami. but we're really good. We're probably the best overall, like historically, and that's sort of Julio. So, all right, that's going to do it for today's podcast. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll Tide.